Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. Through alternative therapies and deep love for herself and her body, Selvi Rengasami healed herself to the point where there's no trace of Crohn's in her body at all.
So can you take us through some quick fixes, things that we can do now that can help us move towards a healthy gut?
Mm-hmm. So when my clients are coming to me and we're starting to work on their gut health, one of the first things that I will do with them, contrary to popular belief, is simplify things, right? So sometimes I will have women who come to me and they're on this massive supplement regimen of 10 different vitamins and herbs and, this thing and that thing. And I'm like, all right, let's simplify all of it. So oftentimes I will either throw everything out or there may be one or two things. But rewinding even prior to that, one of the first things that I will do is put them on a gut reset, which means simplify your food for at least 3 to 5 days minimum if you're having any sort of symptoms. And what that looks like is it's either soups or smoothies, ideally just pureed. And
The Healing Through Love podcast with Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. The Healing Through Love podcast with host Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Hello and welcome to Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Lynch from charlenelynch.com. Healing Through Love is here to help victims and survivors of domestic and family violence find their way back to living a more fulfilling and meaningful life. We interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their healing journey. As well as Healing Through Love podcast, we hold annual Pamper Days here in Adelaide, South Australia for survivors of domestic and family violence. Our local businesses come together to pay it forward for the day and provide their services and resources for a much deserved day of indulgence. Think day spa on steroids. It's a sight to behold. Now, we're looking for organisations and groups of people who are interested in running these in their own backyard. We've reached out to everyone globally to say these healing days, these Pamper Days make a difference, collectively gathering our beautiful healing people and making a difference in that space. So if this resonates with you on any level, we have got in August another session where we are taking you through the process of how we went through and then introducing you to our education program, which is all free, because we understand if we're going to raise the frequency of this planet, we need to do it one heart at a time, and this is what's going to make a difference. Now, we're looking for organisations with similar values, so if you'd like to be interviewed or help us make a step forward with this movement, please reach out to us. You can find us in Healing Through Love on our website or anywhere on social media. I love it, and every week we have amazing guests, and this week is no difference. We have a special guest all the way from the USA. Dr. Selvi guides women with gut disease on a path of remission and beyond using unique methodology of integration, nutrition, energetics, and intuitive medicine. I cannot wait to dive in deep. She does have a backstory, and I really would love to start with that. Dr. Selvi, can we start with your backstory?
absolutely. It's such a pleasure to be here, Charlene. So my story begins in 96. I mean, honestly, even before that. So going back to childhood, I was this kid who always had gut issues, who always had diarrhea, seemingly stomach viruses, I was told, just a quote unquote sensitive stomach. Fast forward to when I was in college, all of a sudden I had bouts of diarrhea that wouldn't stop, and I was tired, and nobody could really figure out why. And I just chalked it up to another one of those things until, like I said, it literally wouldn't stop. And so then one of our family friends, who's a doctor, started to run some blood work. He found that I had high inflammation in my blood markers. And he said, that's not normal for a 19-year-old. Let's do some further studies. And then he found inflammation in my small intestine. A few months later, they did a colonoscopy, which showed that I had ulcers in my large intestines. And I remember going into the gastroenterologist's office and they said, Selvi, I'm afraid you have Crohn's disease. And I was like, what's that? Like, I had no idea what that meant. They told me I would need to be on medications for the rest of my life, that there was no cure. And I was in my second year of college and just shell-shocked. I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to deal with it. So, me being an overachiever, having my eyes on medical school, I was like, okay, thank you. What medications do I need to take? All right, I'll take whatever. Went on my merry way. Let me go back to Columbia University and, put myself through a lot of stress. And 2 years later, I wound up needing emergency surgery for a perforation in my large intestine. They told my parents that I had 24 to 48 hours to live. It was earth-shattering, life-shattering, all the things. Senior semester of college, was working on my senior project in chemical engineering, and bam, my world just got turned upside down. And I was left with an ostomy, so that's a bag for a stool to come out. And I was left with that for a year. My healing for the actual incision took over 9 months. It was a lot to process, right? So between then and then the subsequent surgery, I looked death in the face twice. My entire outlook on life just changed, and I didn't have answers. And yet, at that point in time, all I could still see was what my doctors were telling me. I remember asking, does diet play a role? And they're like, no, not really, trial and error, whatever. There's no dietary connection. In my mind, I'm like, wait, it's a digestive disease. I have inflammation in my intestines. Like, how does this make sense exactly? So something wasn't sitting right with me, but I just listened and I kind of, went along with what I was being told and bounced from medication to medication. Eventually needed more surgery after I got into medical school, pushed myself through tooth and nail. Just again, eye on the prize, push was kind of my MO, which was stressing my body out further, until I got to a point where my body pushed back and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. I wound up back in the hospital needing a big major surgery. And that was the moment where I knew my medical career was over, because my body forced me to take a look at my health and to really put myself first. And that was probably the first time in my life that I really had to put myself first, because I wasn't going to choose it. So life made that happen. So then I was exploring my healing journey, right? Of just, okay, my goal first was, let me get to remission. How do I get to remission? Oh, take this medication. Oh, take that medication. Oh, now we need to do another procedure or another surgery, another test. And nothing was really helping. So I remember being on really toxic doses of medication. Like this one medication I was on at least 8 times the normal dose or the maximum dose. And in my head, I'm like, okay, one of the side effects is lymphoma. This doesn't sit well with me. Like, what do you mean that this is okay? And again, every fiber in my being was just telling me that this can't be the answer. It's not the answer. I'm taking this massive dose of medication. I'm still flaring. Forget remission. Like, my disease was still out of control. I'm still needing surgeries. And I remember this, like for the nth time, lying on the operating table, looking at those horrid glaring lights in the operating room and just thinking to myself, this is not my life. I don't want to live like this anymore. And that was when I said, I'll do anything. I don't care what it is. I will literally do anything. Went through the surgery, recovered. And then I actually had my own cooking blog at the time. I loved to cook and I loved to experiment in the kitchen. And I used to follow other people's cooking blogs. So I was looking through updates. And this one cooking blog, they had talked about how their pet was healing from making dietary changes. And something about it for me clicked. I was like, wait, okay, cats, humans, we're not that different. Come on, something here makes sense. And then I said, okay, maybe I'll make a dietary change and I'll try going gluten-free. So I did. And I started to feel better. And I made another change and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. Like the bloating is less, the joint pain is less. I'm feeling more energy. Something just inside, something feels right. Okay, something's working. Eventually, I wound up stepping into the world of Eastern medicine. I discovered acupuncture, I discovered Ayurveda. Having come from a Western medicine background, you're very much taught in discrete systems, right? The circulatory system and the respiratory system and the digestive system. You go to Eastern medicine and they look at it as a whole, right? So energy is flowing through your body as a whole. Emotions play a role. Your pulse plays a role. I mean, my acupuncturist would look at my tongue and ask me questions about how I was emotionally feeling based on my tongue or my pulse, or my energy level. And I was like, how are you doing this? It seemed like magic at the time. And I would keep picking her brain. And then I started to understand that all of it played a role, not just the physical body, not just treating the symptoms, but let's get down to the root of what's underneath that, right? What's going on in your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions? What is the story that your body is telling? And how do we now start to address you as a human being and not a digestive symptom, not diarrhea and not inflammation and not an inflammatory marker and not an autoimmune disease, but Selvi, the human? What is the story that you're telling me? And that was the game changer for me. I was like, holy crow, how is this possible, right? So then I just started to go deeper and deeper into this and doing more inner work and working on my patterns and working on mindset things that were playing out and how that was playing a role into my disease process, right? And the more I started to go into it, the better I started to feel. So eventually I got to remission, but even when I got to remission, I wasn't feeling great. So I then started to work with and learn how to work with my own energy field. So like the work of Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, right, who talk about working in your energy field. Yeah, exactly, right? I was like, they're my people. I work with this with my clients now because that was a game changer. It was like, okay, now we worked with the physical body, we worked with mindset, we worked with emotions, but then where are some of these unprocessed blocks that are still in my energy field that are holding me back? How do I now get to unravel and unblock them? And that just was a game changer in terms of 10xing my healing. I mean, quantum level shifts. All of a sudden, I started to feel not just, better beyond remission. My disease process was an afterthought, like to the point that I even stopped thinking about it altogether. I had more energy than I ever felt before. I felt more vibrant. All of a sudden, I was like, I can live life. And I got off of medications altogether. Today, I feel the best that I've felt in my entire life. And I credit thinking outside of the box and exploring what my body and what my intuition was telling me to follow. Once I started to trust that, the next pieces were just naturally revealed. And that has led to this, ultimately me bringing it full circle. And now, having gone to school for health coaching, I coach other women now to help them to heal their guts, to work on their gut health in a holistic way. So using integrative nutrition, using energy healing, using intuitive guidance, because I also have the ability to feel into what people's bodies are needing in this moment, whether it's food or, some sort of supportive technique or that sort of thing. So I weave all of this together and I've been able to pay it forward. And that has just been incredible.
I love it. That's so much to unpack. Where do we begin? What a journey to come full circle. So hello listeners, you're probably wondering, how would you know if you've got a gut issue? So can we talk about maybe the symptoms in and around gut issues? And then I'd love to know some of your hot tips for, instant fixes. Well, not instant, but, things that you can step towards to help you with gut issues. So first of all, what would the symptoms look like if you've got gut issues?
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of the most basic symptoms are what we would probably think of, right? So whether it's bloating, constipation, diarrhea, pain, blood in the stool, mucus in the stool, none of that is normal. Some people think, oh, well, I just have a little constipation here or there. It's no big deal. That's not normal. Just because it's quote unquote acceptable doesn't mean that that's normal. That's not how the body is designed to function. So those, but then in addition to that, there's a whole host of other symptoms, things like skin rashes, any kind of skin issues whatsoever, redness, itchiness, that kind of stuff. Allergies, seasonal allergies or food allergies can speak to gut issues, or disease or not, but just gut imbalances is how I like to address it, because not everyone's been diagnosed. Brain fog, so trouble concentrating, trouble focusing, that kind of thing can also be a symptom. Feeling just heavy in your head when you wake up, like there's almost like this dense fog literally over you, where you just like, you kind of get up in the morning and it's hard to lift your head. That can be a symptom. Joint pain anywhere in the body can be a symptom. Fatigue is a super common one. People are like, okay, well, if I have enough coffee or tea or this or that, and you're constantly trying to put yourself on some sort of stimulant to keep going, that's a sign. Those are some really common ones. And even things like mood disorders. So if you are feeling not just depressed or anxious, but even just numb, like just blah, like it's almost like you're looking at the world and everything's gray, right? And nothing is vivid, nothing makes you feel alive or angry or sad. Like you don't really feel, if that makes sense. You're kind of cut off from life. That's a symptom. As well, hormonal irregularities of any sort. So women come to me all the time with either PMS or painful periods or irregular cycles. And again, their doctors may or may not have told them that that's normal or okay, but that's not how the body is designed to function either. And all of this can stem from problems in the gut, because gut health is the foundation of overall health. So your total body health, mental health, emotional health, everything begins in the gut. So if anything is off, truly, that's a sign that something is off in your gut. And a lesser known one, maybe, or a lesser, known link is if you are not able to tap into your intuition. You're thinking, right? You're trying to make a decision. I don't know if I should do this or I should do that, or I don't know if it's yes or I don't know it's no. And you're making pros lists and cons lists and you're staring at it. But your gut sense would tell you in a second, right? And so if you're not able to connect, that's a sign that your gut health isn't very strong. And if you get sick easily, so 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in our gut as well. So if you're frequently getting sick with, random infections, things like that, that's also a sign that your gut health is probably not so great.
I love it. I love it. This is also true. And I reckon, listeners, you probably could tick a couple of those boxes. And I know there's been times in my life where I could tick all of those boxes. And coming to the realization that it's what you're sticking in your mouth or not sticking in your mouth that's making the difference. I love it. So can you take us through some quick fixes, things that we can do now that can help us move towards a healthy gut?
Mm-hmm. So when my clients are coming to me and we're starting to work on their gut health, one of the first things that I will do with them, contrary to popular belief, is simplify things, right? So sometimes I will have women who come to me and they're on this massive supplement regimen of 10 different vitamins and herbs and, this thing and that thing. And I'm like, all right, let's simplify all of it. So oftentimes I will either throw everything out, or there may be one or two things. But rewinding even prior to that, one of the first things that I will do is put them on a gut reset, which means simplify your food for at least 3 to 5 days minimum if you're having any sort of symptoms. And what that looks like is it's either soups or smoothies, ideally just pureed. And it's not very exciting, but what happens is your gut doesn't have to do so much work to churn. The only work it really has to do is to absorb, right? So when you have food that's blended and pureed like that, the strain on your body, the energy that's being consumed by the digestive system drops to very minimal. Now that energy that's being saved can be used to repair your gut. So that's number one. Number two, everything that's now pureed, those nutrients are easily absorbed. So oftentimes, again, when I see women, they've got inflammation, they have challenges to absorbing nutrients across that gut lining because it's damaged, because it's struggling, right? So when we puree things like that, it makes it that much easier to take whatever nutrients are there and just easily absorb it across the gut lining. So we're really just working with our systems to help it to repair much faster by doing it that way. And then just simplifying your activities, just keeping it really easy, really light, really simple, not too many social activities during that time, just really allowing yourself to do what feels yummy for your body. If that's extra sleep, if it's getting a massage, if it's taking a couple of baths, like what would feel really nourishing. It might be more movement, it might be less, right? And sometimes our bodies can have detox reactions during that time. So again, it's nice to just have some time and space to give that to yourself. So yeah, that's the easiest first step that I do with people, to start jump-starting the healing process for their gut.
I love it. I love it. My go-to has to be fermented food. And I just, we're actually sad. Last night we were cooking dinner, and in between the courses, I'm munching on pickled onions. I don't know, there's something about how my body's wired that it has a predisposition to want to eat fermented food. And I love this, if you have a look at lots of other cultures, is that it's part of their food regimes, like Korean food with kimchi and Vietnamese food. Like there's, as it was a way to preserve the food, yes, and it just does so much great work for the gut. So, I mean, are you a fermented food lover like me?
I am, yeah. And it seems to depend on the particular person's body. So some people, fermented food has a quality that's slightly heating, so it's slightly warming to the body. So some people are more prone to heat in their bodies, and if that's the case, they can't seem to handle a lot of fermented foods. But a lot of people can do really, really well with it. This is again where, fine tuning into what exactly it is that your body needs in the moment is so important. So if someone's more on the cooler end of the spectrum, their body tends to be more cool, tends to need more warming, if you will. Fermented foods are great for them, or for neutral people. Absolutely fantastic. They have so many. What's great about them is that there's natural probiotics that are in fermented foods. So the good bacteria that we all want, but especially if you're making it yourself, or if it's somewhere that's locally produced, it is the good bacteria that's naturally present in your environment. So now that's helping your immune system in a very, very natural way, as opposed to taking a pill, as opposed to, supplementing yourself that way. It's great. And it is shorter lived. So you need to have it frequently, as opposed to, once in a blue moon.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, look, sauerkraut is so easy to make. It's ridiculous. It's just some cabbage with some vinegar in a bottle and a little spicy. And yeah, you're right though, because when I had my Ayurvedic stuff done, like what I needed was more warmth, and it might explain why I love spicy food. And if I could put chili on cereal, I would. Like, I don't eat cereal, just so we know. But I just love chili so much, and things that are spicy. And it's interesting because my husband is different. So he doesn't need it and desire it as much, but I look for it. And if I can't find it, I'll create it by adding extra spices in what we're eating. I love it. So, wow. Okay. So what about hydration? Because, it just seems to be a go-to that most people I speak to just aren't even drinking enough water, or don't even know how much water they are drinking. So they don't even have a level of awareness around their hydration.
Mm-hmm. Hydration is so important. I know a lot of the women that come to me, one of the common complaints is water doesn't taste like anything. And I'm like, I hear you on that. That was me once upon a time, full disclosure. I mean, I was just not so much sodas per se, but I was like, water has no flavor. My brother used to love water, and I'm like, how do you? And it's a process, especially if you're used to something that has more flavor. So one of the things that I love to do to increase that flavor profile is infuse it with some fruit or cucumber or something like that. I mean, right now it's summer here in the US, so watermelon, maybe a little bit of cucumber, a little bit of mint, just infuse it and then drink the water so it has some flavor to it. And what you're infusing it with is all healthy stuff as well. Peppermint, also, random aside, is great for your digestive system too. It's cooling, it relieves bloating, that sort of thing. So that can be great. You can track how much water you're drinking in a day. I oftentimes don't necessarily recommend that to clients because I find that sometimes it just stresses people out. Okay, now there's one more thing that I need to track and da 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 da. And I'm like, you know what? Just be sure that you're drinking, like have a glass and know how much there is. And are you refilling it a few times? Fantastic. Now, if you're someone who has diarrhea or is prone to diarrhea, like, some of the clients that I work with, because they have inflammation in their gut, now it's more important for you to really stay hydrated so that, you're already losing some electrolytes in that, right? So we want to make sure we're replenishing it with something. Ideally for me, I love, things that are natural. So herbal teas, coconut water, things like that, but even coconut water only in moderation. Some people I know really go to town on the coconut water. And there's a saying in my native language, and that is that, even the most like divine nectar in excess is the equivalent of poison. So anything in excess is just not going to serve you. So
I love it. What is your native language?
It's Tamil. It's an Indian language. Yeah.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. That's fabulous. So, wow, I love it. So when I'm not doing everything else, I'm a belly dancer, and one of the things that I choreograph is Bollywood, and I just love it. I'm just obsessed with it. Like, I think I've watched 1,000 hours of Bollywood. It's just wonderful. It's so expressive, and it just brings so much joy to people just to watch it. And it's exhausting. So that's a good thing,
Yeah.
to have an exercise routine that actually is exhausting. I love it. I feel that I could talk with you for ages. Yes, and I want to bring the conversation back to how can people work with you, and what sort of work do you do with them? Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. So I work with people in a few different ways. So, I mentioned in the beginning that, I fuse integrative nutrition, energy healing, and intuitive guidance. So the deepest way to work with me is for women who are looking to work on their gut health, to work on repairing their gut health. And that is through my VIP program, where I literally walk you through the mental, physical, emotional, and the energy healing aspect. So we go through every single layer that's preventing your gut from repairing itself, and really start to work on not just repairing your gut, but ultimately your entire life, right? So once your gut starts to get repaired, you're able to now tap into your intuition. Now it's feeling healthy is not the end goal anymore. All of a sudden, your whole life opens up for you, right? So now it's, what do you desire? How do you want to create your life? What does that look like? And how can we bring that to fruition? So that's for the woman who really wants to dive into all of the layers, is ready to go to those places and really turn around at the end of our time together and look back and go, wow, that just happened. My life is totally different. I feel totally different as a person. So that's the deepest way. I also work purely in the energy healing space for people like women who have a strong foundation in their health. They've been doing things for a while. They have their strong diet. They might take a couple of supplements. They're into the holistic realm, but they know that something's keeping them in a plateau, right? And so they're wondering if it might be something in their energy field. Chances are the answer is yes. And so if they're looking to work purely in that space and just kind of tune up their energy field, that's another way that we can work together. And then I also run a monthly small group for mindset work. So we also do some work on mindset through the energy field as well, through intuitive guidance. But it's more, I find a lot of the things in the mindset space tend to be like affirmations or things like that, right? So I'll give you an example. I was working with a coach recently, and she was saying, I want to put myself out there. I want to start doing speaking engagements. And I don't know what it is. I keep freezing. And we started to realize that it was really her internal safety center. She didn't feel safe in her own body. So we started to work with that through several of our sessions. And as she started to feel safe in her body, she automatically went out and started speaking. So it's not, I can speak, I'm capable, like you can try and brainwash yourself, but that's not really what's going on. So we got to the crux of what was really happening, address that. Now you naturally start to move forward. And that's kind of the theme of how I work with people in general, is getting all the way to the root of what's really going on. Once you address that, everything else falls into place.
I hear you. I run a local speaking group here in South Australia. And when we create an environment of safety for them, they'll, even if people that have never got up before to speak will comfortably get up and talk. but it is all about that psychological safety and even the physical safety as well. So yes, and yes. I love it. We're almost out of time, but I don't want to go. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm hoping that you can come back. You've made an offer for our listeners today, which is unbelievable. Can you just take us through the clarity call and what they could expect on that? And we're going to put the links for that in the description and also in the show notes, both on YouTube and also on SoundCloud.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, I am happy to offer a deep dive exploration call for anyone who's looking to address either your gut health, or if you're looking to, just go deep into what's preventing you from moving forward into your life. So it's an hour where we get to talk, we get to figure out what those roadblocks are, and where you actually want to be. Right? So where you are, where you actually want to be, and how we can best get you there. Because I'll tell you this, if you know where you want to be, there is a path to get there. It's just a question of how. And I'm happy to offer you some clarity there.
I love it. This has been an amazing 30 minutes, and I'm looking forward to stalking you inappropriately. That's okay. We can do that now. And I did have one other question, that you're in the States. And so is everything that you're doing in an online environment?
It is, yes.
Excellent, listeners. So that means doesn't matter where you are on this planet, you can dial in and work with Dr. Selvi. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I do want to say, is there, in passing your ending comments today, is there something that you would like to empower our listeners with?
100%. I mean, what I would say, if I could tell you one thing, is you can trust yourself and you can trust your body. When that inner wisdom speaks to you, when you really know deep down that something is right or not right, you can trust that. And when you do and you start to follow that, everything else will fall into place.
So powerful. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Selvi, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. That's bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.